Let us proceed with the discussions on the effective assessment. These are the three main characteristics of effective assessment. First is the validity. An assessment is considered valid when it fits the purpose. Now, in the context of outcome-based learning, the assessment should measure the intended learning outcome, and you will need to use the right assessment method to do the assessment. This is in line with the fundamental principles of this golden triangle. When you do the assessment, you need to measure the learning outcome. Now, within the context of assessment, you will need to choose an appropriate method to best measure the relevant course learning outcome. This is about the validity. Next is the fairness. You will need to allow the students from all backgrounds to have an equal opportunity to demonstrate the knowledge and skill that they have learned through the courses. There could be other factors affecting the ability of the students to demonstrate their knowledge and skills. This needs to be omitted. For example, a student should not be penalized due to the weaknesses in writing in English or having the difficulty to speak fluently in English. Let's say now your learning outcome is focusing on the knowledge and the skills. Theoretically, the measurement should focus on this knowledge and skills. This is to ensure the fairness among the students who are good in English and those who are poor in English. Next is about the reliability. This one is related to the consistency in terms of the evaluations criteria, scores, expectations across different evaluators or over time. It is only when you have a good reliability you can make relative comparison among different students, as well as distinguish the level of achievement among students of different batches. These are some considerations and good practices while conducting the assessment. First, you will need to omit the factors that may affect the students' ability to demonstrate their skills and knowledge that they have gained through the course. Taking the test and final exam as an example, you will need to be fair to the students. The question shouldn't be too long, too tricky, too much on untaught materials, as this is unfair to the students, and this could not ensure a good reliable measurements in terms of the level of achievement of the students. Sometimes you see the lecturer having one questions full of text throughout the entire page. After reading through the test questions, there are so many informations which are not properly organized, complex sentences, some informations purposely said to be misleading, and so on and so forth. Now you will need to ask yourself, what is the ultimate purpose of having the test? If you are testing the students to comprehend the text, which is an important skills in English course, then that shouldn't be a problem. However, if the focus of the test is on certain skills and knowledge, this may be unfair to the students, as you are not testing their comprehension skill. Instead, you are testing their skills in their fields or professions. Taking engineering as an example, normally we don't really mind our students giving their answer in broken English, as we know that we want the engineering knowledge from the students. You know that in engineering courses, especially towards the end of the academic cycle, say in third year and fourth year, those are very technical courses. Normally there will be a lot of informations, technical informations, specifications, property of the materials, and so on so forth disclosed in the exam questions, where the students going to use those informations in their design of the solutions to engineering problems. Now you will need to try your best to make your questions as easily comprehensible by the students. You should take effort to properly organize the informations so that the students can quickly grab the necessary informations, apply them in the solutions. You will have to make every sentence that you construct in your exam and test paper to be as short as possible, as simple as possible, as readable as possible, as you know that your focus of the assessment is not the comprehension. It is for them to demonstrate the knowledge as well as the problem-solving skill in the field of civil engineering. Next, you should not have surprise on tests. Whatever you taught throughout the semester, they are supposed to be meant for assessment. You shouldn't purposely hide certain topic so that the relevant assessment came out as a surprise. This is unfair to the students. This is the importance of making the teaching and learning activity to be well aligned with the assessment. Next, minimize speeds as a factor in performance. Normally, when we talk about the speed, we are referring to the proficiency. It is okay to have the speed as the limit if your expectations of your assessment is related to the proficiency. However, in a typical program, the proficiency is not the utmost concern. Let's say now when you're talking about the practical tests under the bachelor degree of engineering, the relevant experiments are being introduced to the students. Students are given opportunity to have some hands-ons. However, they have not been given time to continuously practice until reaching to certain proficiency level. Now, if your focus is not on the proficiency, you will need to minimize the influence of the speed as a factors of performance. Another example, you will need to provide sufficient time for the students to answer your final exam questions. The time should be given just enough for an average student to finish the entire paper, as your ultimate goal here is to assess the level of attainment by the students. There will be a break-even point between an average student and a pro students. Let's say now a final exam paper is designed to have a duration of 3 hours. Now these 3 hours is sufficient for the students to finish their paper, answering from the first questions to the last question. Let's say you prolong the duration. You provide students 5 hours, and average students will still finish within 3 hours. As for the poor students, even though 5 hours is given, their performance will still be the same as that 3 hours. The student cannot answer the question anyway, even though you provide longer duration. In this case, that 3 hour will be just nice for that particular assessment. Now let's say you want to reduce the duration. A 3-hour papers now become 1.5 hours. Probably bright students can finish the paper, but this is going to be unfair to an average students and also the poor students. You do not allocate sufficient time for them to demonstrate all the knowledge that they have, and this is going to affect the accuracy of your measurements in terms of their levels of performance. Now we talk about announcing the point value for each item. This has been a common practice here. Every single item in your test will have the relevant point being announced to the students. Make it transparent to the students, and the students can estimate the amount of effort that they need to put into the relevant questions. Nowadays, students are well trained with the point value given under each questions. By looking at the point values, they will know how many points they need to provide in answering your questions. Next is providing feedback and return graded tests promptly to maximize learning. This has been encouraged throughout the module here. You need to provide feedback to the students. Where are the problems? Where are the mistakes? What are the grades of the students? Not only that, you might need to guide the students look into this matter. Many students only concerned about the marks. They never bother where are the mistakes and problems, and they move on. Now the focus and emphasis have been put in the wrong directions. And this is the main reason that normally lecturers do not like to provide feedback to the students, as the students are not interested anyway. But you know that facilitating learning is a part of the lecturer's job. When they are not learning in the right way, we should try our best to guide them. The ultimate goal here is to help them to learn. Next is about the time allocation. You can use this as a guide to you, that if you are able to accomplish the test within 1/3 of the time, then the durations provided to the student, it shall be 3 times of this. Let's say now for your final exam question paper, you try it yourself, you can finish it within 1 hour. Then you know that that particular paper, you need to provide 3 hours to the students. It is logical that you can finish the paper faster than your students. You have been teaching the relevant course many semesters, but the students only take that particular course in that particular semester. You gain experience, and you can quickly identify the focus as compared to the students. Another reason is, when you set the exam questions, you have already predetermined that what kind of answer that you're expecting out of that particular questions. This has already shortened your time of exploring, try and error, as well as understanding the questions. Now, when the students are given the final exam questions, that will be the first time they see the question. They need time to digest, to search for informations, to think of the way to solve the questions, and then to provide solutions in the answer script. Therefore, you will need to provide sufficient time to the students to go through the entire process here. Another consideration related to the assessment is that for you to set multiple parts problems, it is so that if the students miss certain part of it, they can still solve the subsequent parts. This shall help you to increase the accuracy of your measurement. Now, having a questions to be multiple parts may also be arguable. This is very much dependent on the cognitive level that you would like to assess. You don't want these multiple parts to be giving too much guidance to the students if you are assessing the students at the level 5 and level 6 cognitive domain. I'm not saying that you cannot have multiple parts for C5 and C6. Now you have to find a way to have the problems in multiple parts without affecting the natures of thinking order as per required in C5 and C6. It is always a good way to have the problems in multiple parts to minimize the factors that can influence their performance, not reflecting their actual ability. Next is for you to prepare detailed solutions key before giving the test. you should have gone through the entire solutions every time you set your final exam questions. You must be able to resolve the questions before giving those questions to the students. The questions must be valid so that you can measure the level of attainments and understandings of the students. Now, when you look at the general practices here, you will see that the ultimate goal here is for you to eliminate factors that can affect the reliability of the assessment. This goes back to the golden triangle here. It is only when you can do an accurate measurement, then you will know the status and the attainments of that respective course learning outcome, as well as the effectiveness of your teaching and learning activities. Now, if the assessment is inaccurate, your following corrective actions will also based on those inaccurate results. This ultimately going to lead you somewhere else, deviated from the original situation. As a result, no matter how hard you try, you cannot find the solutions to improve your course.